Good afternoon, Dr. Patel, Vice Chair Hoover, and members of the Assembly Education Committee. I'm Jeannie Myung, Director of Policy Research at PACE. I wrote the report TK-12, Education Governance in California, Past, Present, and Future, with my co-authors, Drs. Heather Huff and Julie Marsh. A summary of our report is included in your packet. The report was motivated by a recurring pattern we observed coming out of the pandemic. Even when the state adopted bold, student-centered policies funded by historic investments, implementation frequently fell short of the policy's potential for students. We drew on historical research, systems analysis, and the perspectives of over 50 leaders from research, policy, and practice, gathered through interviews and expert convening and external review. Our report found that California's policy aspirations for students are increasingly equity-focused, research-informed, and student-centered. However, its governance system is not well aligned to move those goals from policy through implementation and into practice in ways that meaningfully and reliably improve learning for students across our state. Universal Transitional Kindergarten is one example of how a strong policy idea failed to deliver equitable learning opportunities for all eligible students, due in large part to governance challenges. The same could be said for the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program, the English Learner Roadmap, or other ambitious policies that have resulted in uneven implementation and inequitable access. A map of the entities involved in education governance in California appears on page 4 of the summary. The map evokes an insight from improvement science that every system is perfectly designed to achieve the results that it gets. California's education governance system certainly is complex, but our mapping also suggests that this complexity reflects important Californian values embedded in the state's approach to governance, including plurality, collaboration, and democratic engagement. The challenge is to now more fully embrace those values by aligning them more clearly with the state's goals for improved student learning. First, plurality. California has built a governance system with many actors and many opportunities for inclusive participation. That plurality can be a strength, but without clear role definition, it can also diffuse responsibility. It takes a village, but a village where no one knows who is in charge will not function well. And when everyone is in charge, no one is in charge. When no one has clear responsibility for results, ambiguity, delay, and fragmented action are predictable results. Our report's first recommendation is to clarify roles and responsibilities in order to reduce overlap and sharpen accountability. Second, collaboration. California values collaboration across institutions and levels. In our map, some relationships are more tightly coupled through formal authority, such as statutory compliance requirements, while others are more loosely coupled through voluntary collaboration and support. That looseness can be productive. It can allow for adaptation, local judgment, and learning across contexts. But it can also weaken the link between policy intent and policy interpretation. The challenge is not tighter coupling everywhere, but rather tighter linkages at the strategic points where being on the same page matters most. Structurally aligning the CDE with the state board is one way to better connect policy with implementation. Third, democratic engagement. California values public voice and entrusts elected leaders with representing their constituents in decision-making at every level of the system. This includes the state's 8 constitutional officers, among them the SPI. Each constitutional officer is elected separately and carries an independent democratic mandate across the state. If the daily administration of the CDE were to be aligned under the state board, the SPI could more clearly serve as an independent statewide voice for system accountability and evaluation in education. More fundamentally, the current system relies on our independently elected SPI to serve as the chief administrator of policies shaped elsewhere by the governor, the legislature, and the state board. Arguably, this administrative role is mismatched to the stature of an independently elected statewide constitutional office that carries the power of the people. Consider as an example the state controller. a constitutional officer responsible for independent oversight of the state's finances, and the director of the Department of Finance, a gubernatorially appointed cabinet-level official responsible for budget development and fiscal policy. Both play important but distinct roles in the state's fiscal system. Just as California separates those two functions of fiscal oversight and fiscal policy for elected and appointed leaders, a similar principle could guide the relationship between the SPI and the leadership of the CDE. Because the SPI is independent of both the governor and the legislature, the office is well suited to lead evaluation and feedback loops for policy improvement and system accountability on behalf of students, reducing reliance on implementers to evaluate their own work. This is not a diminished role. It is a safeguard of democratic accountability and a role that an official directly answerable to voters is uniquely positioned to provide. Our report recommends that the State Board appoint a director of the CDE, subject to Senate confirmation, to strengthen both the administrative expertise at the helm of the CDE as well as legislative oversight. This is about aligning authority, professional expertise, and responsibility in ways that the public can understand and hold accountable. This move will not on its own solve the state's broader challenges with implementation, evaluation, and capacity. However, it is a critical first step, creating the conditions for more substantive conversations about how to build the capacity needed for high-quality support for implementation and improvement. Thank you.